Hey everybody, welcome to Northwest Passages. This is Ryan Collingwood. Coming at you from Indianapolis, where we're covering the NCAA tournament from my hotel room. And today we have Kamie Ethridge, Washington State University women's basketball coach. Coach just took the Cougars to the NCAA tournament in San Antonio, a little bit further from Indianapolis, but got them there for the first time in 30 years. Kamie has a very extensive background. Kamie, she played in the Olympics. Her jersey's retired at University of Texas, and she turned Northern Colorado into a winner, and now she's quickly turned Washington State into a winner. So, Coach, thanks for coming on. How was that experience down in San Antonio? Obviously, a little earlier than you probably would have wanted to have left the place, but you got there.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Looking at the whole year, the run was amazing. The excitement that we built, even though we couldn't quite see it or feel it, I think as coaches, we got a lot of messages from people and Cougs everywhere. And, just being the underdog and that was able to, do a bunch of firsts. And that was the thing we talked about all year long is let's go be that team. It's the first time we've beaten, so-and-so in however many years. First time we've beaten, all those firsts happened. And getting to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 30 years, for the second time in school history was really remarkable. And, I know there were a lot of complaints a little bit about San Antonio and some of those things, but it was really a unique and great experience to be there 5 or 6 or 7 days that we were. I mean, we really, our team, just enjoyed every minute of it. And again, it's something that we've got a taste of it now. I think we want to get back.
Yeah, and you guys got there in a year that was kind of strange, obviously with the COVID stuff, but you guys lost 2 pros last year. You guys lost Bobby Buckets and you lost Chanel, who's here in Indianapolis playing for the Indiana Fever. So you lose those 2 girls and you're playing in the deepest conference in America. But then some girl from New Zealand comes and kind of changes things for a little bit. Talk about her a little bit.
Yeah. We didn't know for sure. I mean, honestly, it wasn't just those 2 players. So we lost 2 others to transfers. And so I think kind of our first 4 out of our top 6 or something like that were gone. So it was like, it just felt like 70% of our scoring and probably 70% of our minutes and just young players behind those guys. So, but we knew Charlize Ledger-Walker was a great, great player. We've been watching her for years. And just a different kind of player. She's not just an offensive player. She's really an all-around, unbelievable defender. Her size, she can play in multiple positions. And then adding Crystal as a 5th-year point guard, I think just gave us depth and really high IQ basketball players that were able to just make our team better in some way. So it was remarkable to see Charlize do what she did in her freshman year. I mean, I don't think we expected that. We knew she was good. I'm not sure we understood how good.
Yeah, is there anybody, I mean, you've been around the game for a long time, and back in 1986, you were the player of the year in the nation. So is there anybody you can compare her to?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I do know of anyone because I'm still not convinced we have her playing where we need to. I think if you ask her what position she plays, she'd tell you she's a point guard. So on her national team, going back to New Zealand, they'll want her to be a point guard. Probably some of the best places that we had her this year, she was our power forward, our 4 player. So she's so versatile. And, her ability to handle the ball and do everything that, she just plays. It doesn't matter what it is. She's a basketball player. And that's the thing that I think if we're going out recruiting now, we aren't really numbering players. We aren't saying you're a 1, 2, 3, or 4. We just want really great basketball players, and we'll figure out how to play them all at the same time. And she is just that. She's a pro mentally, her elite level IQ, elite level feel for the game. Again, she's going to be playing this game for a long time.
And how do you kind of bottle that success? 3 years is about the marker when you're rolling. Year 3 is kind of like, okay, this is where we're at, and you got to the tournament, 3rd time in 30 years. So how do you sustain that? And when you do it, I mean, you could have the best players ever, and you could be doing the best job you can, but if everyone else is getting the best players ever, you can only do so much. So how do you kind of keep that going in such a tough league like the Pac-12?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's a great question. We talk about it all the time. Even a year ago, or in the early part, we were picked 12th, and you don't think you're going to finish 12th, but you just start looking at the programs that are picked above you, and they're good programs. They're winning traditions. Most of them have great tradition in women's basketball. So, you're constantly just going, well, we just need to leapfrog to there. We just need to get to the top half of the Pac-12. And if you get to the top half, which we did, we got to the NCAA tournament. Well, there's no guarantee we stay in the middle of the pack right now. I mean, because the people that are finished below us are dying to beat us and still think they can. And the people above us, like you said, are recruiting All-Americans and athletes that are just kind of otherworldly. And so we have to be a little bit different. We're probably not going to we're not going to out-recruit Oregon or at this point, Oregon State and UCLA and some of these other teams. So we've just got to get the players that fit our system, the character kids, the work ethic, the high IQ players, the unselfish players, and just the gritty people. And it's the people that I think fit well with being a Coug and at Washington State and in Pullman. And we've got to stay true to that. We can't change who we are as coaches or what we're building this program on. But I do think we can. We've created an interest in the Pacific Northwest with some great recruits that are reaching out to us. And I think our brand is coming online a little bit, and maybe we'll have a chance to get some of these great recruits in our area. But at the same time, we're going to keep looking for and trying to get great players across this world. And that's been successful, and I think we can still do that.
And those who haven't noticed, she has an accent. She's from Texas. She's from Lubbock, Texas. She went to Lubbock Monterey High School, and we all know Greg Elo up here in the Northwest for what Greg's done in the basketball community. Obviously, his NBA career. And Craig, former Coug, they went to the same high school. I mean, Craig's a few years older than Kamie, but you two both have your jerseys retired at Monterey, right?
We do. They did it the same night, and I don't think either of us really were there, but yeah, I really do feel like I followed in his footsteps. I mean, he was the big name, and I'm still wondering how. I think everybody in Lubbock wonders how he didn't get picked up by Texas Tech and how they didn't recruit him. But what a great career, and what a great guy. I've had the chance to meet him a number of times since then, and obviously followed his career. But it's pretty special to have my jersey up there next to his.
But your jersey's also in Austin, and that's a pretty big deal. But I got to ask, was Matthew McConaughey present for your jersey retirement at University of Texas?
The neat thing that they did, they brought me in because of basketball. They brought me in for a football game. And so it was 2 Septembers ago, and it was when the year LSU won the national championship, and it was that sellout game that I got to watch. And he was on the sidelines of the football game, of course. But and so again, that was the first time when I walked into the arena this past week, was the first time I had seen the jersey up in the stand. So it hadn't gotten up there when I was there in September, but it was neat to see it up there.
Are you doing okay with the kind of lack of barbecue in the Northwest? I mean, we have some spots, but it's not quite. We don't have a Rudy's like down in Texas or Lubbock. We don't have anything like that. But have you found your Texas staple for barbecue yet in Pullman or Spokane or even Coeur d'Alene?
Well, I can't say I'm not going hungry. That's for sure. So I've definitely found some places that I go a lot, but I think if there's a place, Tex-Mex would be my thing that I miss the most probably from Texas. But I've even found a couple places here that I like though too. So it's going. Food is not a problem for me.
So when you played women's basketball, starting to hit its stride a little bit in the 80s. I mean, you've seen it grow so much in these past 30, 40 years. Talk about your playing days when you're playing for the Longhorns and scoring, it seemed like 30 points a game, and then to now you're seeing these teams and these girls are all 6'2", athletic, and just talk about the evolution of women's basketball since the time you played to what you're coaching today.
Yeah. Well, we actually, I mean, our team that we had at Texas that won the national championship was so athletic and so talented. And I was the smallest. And, we didn't have 6'6" and 6'7". I mean, it's amazing some of the size that teams have this now, and how skilled everybody is. But I think we were one of those rare teams, and there were a few back then. It was, the best were by far better than the rest of everybody else, but we had an unbelievably deep team, like really great. Our second five could beat our first five in some situations. So I don't think that was rare back then, and now I'm just amazed at the level of skill, the teaching, the training, the yeah, and just how far the game has come, and I think for better. Obviously, it's the offense is catching up to defense. I think it's probably been hard to watch when we don't score a lot of points. I think people like to see points being scored, and that's something I think our team needs to get better doing. But I think overall, the women's game has just become, it's amazing to watch, and even into the WNBA. I mean, I just think it's a really well played sport, and if you love basketball, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. And you seem like kind of a small town coach. You came from it's pronounced Hereford, your hometown.
Hereford.
Hereford, yeah, that's up by Amarillo, right?
It is.
Yeah, so we've talked before. And I told you my Midland, Odessa background when I was earlier in my journalism career. I think I covered Hereford, and that's a cattle town, right?
It is. I didn't really grow up there. That was the closest. Hospital. So I was born there. We actually lived in Canyon outside of Amarillo. And so that's why we went to the Hereford hospital, but, moved to Lubbock, when I was probably 6 years old.
Okay. And then you, Northern Colorado, the Big Sky Conference, you turn that program around. So when you went to Pullman, you kind of knew, all right, well, this is a tough job. I can be here for 3 or 4 years and then maybe end up back in the Big Sky, or we can see how far this could take me. That's probably what you're thinking. So when you took the job and you knew what was ahead of you, and you knew you're going to play, Tara Vanderveers and all these other great coaches, what were some of those things you thought you could kind of latch on to and maybe, start building and make something out of it?
Yeah. Well, I actually did. I called, or I think Carol Callan, who's head of USA Basketball, and I've known her for years. And she called to congratulate me when I got the job. And, I was just downplaying it a little bit. And it's like, oh, do you think we'll ever, can I do it? Can we do it? Can we ever get any good players to want to come to Pullman? And she said, wait a second. Let me think about this. You grew up in Lubbock, which isn't, that pretty. You turned around, you went to Manhattan and did fine at Manhattan, Kansas, which again is rural. You went to Greeley, that nobody, everybody poo-poos Greeley in Colorado. And she said, and now you're in Pullman. She's like, you've done pretty good all along. So I think you'll be fine. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm drawn to, I don't know that I'm drawn to rural. It seems like that's where I've landed a lot. What I was most drawn to when I took this job was, Pat Chun and his vision, and the process of being interviewed and listening to him. And Kirk Schultz got on the phone, the president of the university, and gave me a cell, and just, their vision and their trust that we're going to give you 6 years. So they gave me 6 years knowing it was going to be a hard job and it wasn't going to be a quick turnaround. And they just said, we'll give you everything you need to be successful. Not everything you want. You don't get everything you want because we can't do that here, but we'll give you, what you need to compete. And, their trust was build it the right way, go get the kind of kids that fit this place and fit you as a coach, and the nature and the pride and the grit of a Coug. And that's a good fit for me. I mean, that's who I've been my whole career as a player and as a coach. And, the toughness and the competitiveness, the work ethic, the grittiness, and then just respecting how hard it is to be great at this game and attacking every day to pursue that. And I just love finding good fits. I love finding players that are about those things. And we may not have the most talent, but that doesn't mean you can't compete at the highest level. And I think, you see that all the time in women's basketball. You certainly see it even in men when Loyola Chicago upsets Illinois. I mean, it's just, you can get the right fits. You can get the high, kids that just outwork the more talented. And that's what I feel like we can find our niche here at Washington State and succeed.
And you played at the highest level. I mean, you played in the Olympics. What do you remember about the Olympics? I mean, that's a major accomplishment, and to kind of be on that stage. Was there anything from that experience you kind of still hold dear as far as just your everyday life?
Well, I mean, fortunately, I got the opportunity to be coached by Kay Yao, and again, that's a name any women's basketball coach knows. I mean, she died of cancer. She was at North Carolina State when Jim Valvano was there for years and years, and just an unbelievably great coach, role model, godly woman. And she coached us in the World Championships teams too, the team that went to Russia and beat Russia for the first time in 26 years. So we won a World Championship in Russia. And then 2 years later, when the Olympics came around, and I had gotten injured as the year in between at the Pan Am Games. I blew out my knee, and I honestly wasn't the same player. I didn't quite get, it's just hard to rehab in 9 months. And she chose me on the team. She picked 3-point guards, and she took me and showed just so much loyalty to me in choosing me. So, it wasn't, I didn't get to play as much as I had always in my whole career. It was the first time in my life that I didn't totally start and get to play as much. But what I remember most is it's the culmination. You remember the opening ceremonies when you're walking out there with all those athletes. You remember, I remember being on the gold medal stand when the national anthem and the flag is put in front of you and it's played. And I remember looking up and seeing my mom, who was in the stands, and just, you just have the appreciation of all those people and what they did for you to let you achieve and pursue your dreams. And you just appreciate them, that they, making sure that they're a part of your dream and a part of that moment. It was amazing. And that's that's my big takeaway, is being on that Olympic stand and thinking of the people that did it for me and with me.
All right, so you had success at Washington State pretty quick. You had success at Northern Colorado. This is that time when people kind of start, these coaching searching firms start kind of looking, they're kind of seeing Kamie Ethridge, man, she's doing some big things. But you mentioned that you like the small town atmosphere, you like being a Coug. So are you kind of bracing yourself for those calls from those coaching firms to kind of see, Kamie, this job's opening in this particular conference at this bigger school with this amount of money. That's going to be a thing for you. I think it's just the reality of it. But you've mentioned that you love this program at Washington State, and it's a good fit for you.
Yeah, I've never pursued jobs really, and I think I'm really loyal. Maybe it hurt me in my career. I stayed so long at K-State that I probably missed opportunities to become a head coach earlier. But I'm really loyal, and I plant my feet, and where I'm planted, that's where I am. I'm not looking around for the next job. And I'm so invested in the kids that we've brought to this program and having this program. I'm so invested and appreciative of the trust that the administration has placed on me and my staff. And I like a good challenge. I don't think I think the big thing when you're looking for jobs is, you want your AD to believe in you. You want your AD and the president of your university to believe in women's basketball and women's sports. And there's not that many out there. So that was the big reason why I took this job, and those things are in place here. And like I said, I just think we're beginning to scratch the surface. I can't wait to get fans back in Beasley. I can't wait for our players who have not experienced watching the excitement of women's basketball on the rise and seeing the impact that they're making maybe in our community. we missed that this year. We keep talking about it, but I can't wait to see how many season tickets that we might sell next year, and that we can maybe make this into an unbelievable home court advantage when people come in, that there's no way that they're going to walk away with a win in our gym. So there's a lot more we can do here. And again, it starts and ends with recruiting and getting great kids in here. But like I said, this is where I am. I believe in this place. I love this place, and I'm excited about the future.
The area, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Pullman area, it actually has. I'm sure you've noticed this in your 3 years here, that per capita, it does pump out a lot of Division I level girls basketball players, that Spokane AAU circuit. So what's kind of fall into that? Obviously, you want to be able to extend as far as you can, but it's got to be kind of nice to have that in the backyard, like this very basketball oriented metropolitan area for girls basketball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, even no question, like if we really, I when I took over this program, let me just tell you this story. We called a lot of high school coaches. We called a lot of club coaches, and a lot of them said, the words came out and said, we haven't heard from a Washington State coach in years. And so we didn't have great relationships, and that's okay. I mean, they just were pursuing mostly international players. So, I think, and then, so that's the underlying thing that we took over. So we start making phone calls, and obviously we want to know the best players in this region. And then the next thing is none of their best players want to stay and rebuild or try to make this into a great program. They told us no. Haley Van Lith told us no when we picked up the phone, and she ends up at Louisville. That we've had a lot of no's from people that are from this area because they want to go to a winning program. And so we had to fight that. And so and now this year has kind of started turning the corner and in the relationship building. We've gained some trust with the coaches. But I think also in proving that we're going to turn this thing around and having some success. And I do think kids want to go close to home if they can get everything they need and want. Obviously, Gonzaga has done an amazing job at keeping kids close and doing amazing things in their program. So we want to compete with every great player in this region. We want to be in their list and on their list if that's a fit for us. And again, winning helps. Winning, believe me, winning helps more than anything. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna keep pursuing internationals, but I expect us to sign a lot more, regional kids and some of the best players in this Pacific Northwest. So it's gonna happen, but we got to keep the winning going.
All right, we're gonna field some questions now. All right, we got a question from Jesse. There was a lot of talk about inequities between women and men's facilities at the NCAA tournament. What does that say to you, and has there been progress over the past few decades?
Yeah, I think the big thing that you just knew, there's always been inequities. We haven't known them because we're not in the same bubble. Like this was the one time you put one team in a bubble over here and one team over there, and then you provide all these other extra things for this group and you don't over here. And it just they got called out on it. It just became obvious. It was comparing apples to apples. It wasn't like, if the bubble hadn't existed, we would have never known all this. We would have still been going to, the top seeds places. We wouldn't, the bubble has just changed everything. And it just showed, it showed how they don't think of you. They have the same manual, but this manual gives weight rooms and provides opportunities for athletes to get outside. And this one over here says, no, you don't get that. So again, it's a mistake from the highest level of the NCAA. And I just think social media doesn't let mistakes go unnoticed anymore. You just get killed by them. And I think overall it's going to be improved. And it just, again, it's, the commitment from the NCAA has been unbelievably good to us in women's basketball. And I expect them to really make some changes to continue to not let things like this happen again. But I mean, that's the overall view of all that. But I would tell you, man, our kids loved the experience of being there, and we got to experience some pretty awesome things. And I don't want to be the big complainer in this, because I just think it's an amazing what they put us in, the bubble. It was a major process to field this tournament, and I'm grateful that we were able to do it, and pretty much everybody's kind of come away without very many positives and positive tests, and getting eliminated from the tournament because of that.
I don't know how it was down in San Antonio, but I'm here in Indianapolis. The men's teams are in hotels, and you can tell which ones are, got a team in there. They have cop cars and stuff out there, and security. Was that for you guys too? Did y'all have some sort of like law enforcement on the outside of your hotel, and then if somebody who was just kind of random walking around, where they've gotten like, you got to go around, you got to be within like, they don't want any pedestrians within like 50 yards of you. Did you see that a lot with your team?
Yeah, no, they stood at the door, and even teams couldn't come into contact. There were like 4 or 5 teams in there with us, and they would get everybody through the lobby and to your floors before the other team could come in. So there was really no interaction whatsoever. And, it was just difficult. We were in the La Quinta on the Riverwalk. And so our meeting room was really a small, small room compared to what I saw in the men. The men were able to put down, a lane and like actually have a walkthrough in their big ballrooms. I saw the Texas men were throwing a football that was so big that they could throw a football around in there and just have some, exercise. Our room was not very big. So it was just to eat and watch film in. So, but that's just, again, those are the discrepancies that you saw and felt. But as far as keeping you safe, boy, they did. They did a great job of keeping us safe and keeping us, separate from fans or specifically even other teams. It was very much, there were people everywhere not letting you have any kind of contact.
And you guys wore like the lanyards or whatever, the things that kind of the monitor things. What was that like? The kind of just knowing that's around you, like on you. Was that strange? Obviously, it was for a good reason, but just the notion of that happening. What was that like?
Well, the lanyard was so our green one told you that you were an athlete. So and you might run across some people that were working downstairs and everything, and theirs would be blue, and they were part of the NCAA, people, and they would say, don't ever get on the elevator with someone with a blue. You make sure you're only on it with the green. So the tier 1 kind of, we were considered tier 1 personnel, and then it kind of goes down from there. But I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. The other thing that we used, and we did it all year long, was the tracking devices that basically was a computer chip that some coaches wear it as a watch. Our players, you have to wear it during the game. And so they put it in their sock generally. And we've been doing that all year with the Pac-12. And that literally tells you, it records. So if I'm within 6 feet of an assistant coach, it's how Kyle and our group, our guys got knocked out. They got knocked out because those recordings on that chip said you were within 6 feet for so many minutes. It has to go over certain, it's not just like you come into contact, but if you're over there a certain amount of minutes, then you're considered close contact. And that's how you either get caught up in contact tracing or you get eliminated. Like I didn't come close to that kid who tested positive on the other team, so I'm okay. So that tracking device, I think, was we did that from the moment we traveled with our team. So it recorded flights and bus rides and things like that, to practice and to games. And so we could always go back and see where we had contact with other people. So that was, I think the players will be excited when we don't have to use that device anymore.
Yeah, I don't think those were in every conference. I think it was for the high majors. I didn't hear anything about Idaho or Eastern having to go that far with it, but that's good to know. I think that's really interesting.
They did at the tournament though. Everybody had to wear them at the tournament. So NCAA did mandate that at the NCAA.
Okay. So, we're getting to the meat of the NCAA tournament now. We're getting deep into it. Who do you think is going to win the women's tournament? Who's your favorite, or who do you think, just on paper or what you've seen with your eyeballs, is going to win the women's tournament? And then you look over to the men, kind of see what's going on over there. I know your Texas Longhorns got upset by little old Abilene Christian. That was kind of crazy, but it also kind of inspires the little guy, like the Cougs in the Pac-12. So you probably like that. So talk about, who needs to win the women's tournament, who needs to win the men's tournament.
I've been, if I were to re-rank them and reseed them, I would say right now Maryland for the women look unbelievably great. I'm really impressed with. Talk about scoring the basketball. I think they're amazing. And so I hadn't watched them much, but they were a 2 seed. So I think they look great. I think Baylor from the Big 12 looks great. It'll be interesting. I think UConn has to go through Baylor, maybe. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe not. But, I want Stanford to win. I wasn't – I'm not sure after watching all the other teams play, but I'm all for the Pac doing well. I love that we've got 3 teams in the Sweet 16, and I would love for that to hold out and get to Final Fours. But I'm not sure. I think I would put Stanford as the number 3 seed right now, with maybe not UConn maybe up there, but if I were to pick someone right now just off the eye test, I would say Maryland might win it. North Carolina State scores, but I'm not sure they can score against some of the athletes that Baylor and Maryland put on the floor. So, but for my purposes, I'm going to stick with the Pac. Let's let the Pac win in both. I think it's awesome what the men have done. I think the fact that our guys beat 3 out of the 4 of the teams that are in the Sweet 16. I mean, it's a great story, that the Pac has done so well in the NCAA tournament. And I think that really helps us in our recruiting and going forward. So let's stick with the Pac.
All right. Well, Kamie, I think that's all I need from you, but I really appreciate you coming on Northwest Passages and talking about, the past year and your 3 years at Washington State. Obviously, you caught the eye of the Northwest basketball scene and kind of put the league on notice a little bit. So, Kamie, we appreciate you having you on, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan, for having me. Go Cougs.
Thanks for joining us today. All of our videos and discussions are archived on our video site, which you can access for free. If you feel compelled to buy a ticket, please take that cash and instead make a contribution to the Community Journalism and Civic Engagement Fund via the Inovia Foundation. We appreciate your support.